Welcome to the Bold Property Podcast, where informed decisions shape stronger property portfolios. Your hosts are Carl from the Barnard Group and Cameron from The Way to Invest. Each week they cut through the noise and guide you to invest with clarity, strategy and confidence.
All right, Cam, we're back for 2026. We've got a big year ahead of us. How was your break?
Look, it was a bit of a break. It was fun. Had a couple of weeks off over the Christmas New Year period. Went to New Zealand, a bit of a refresh and getting ready to start a big 2026. And had a client from New Zealand. So having this client has sort of made me like, I want to go to New Zealand, check it out. I hadn't been. Bit embarrassed to say that because I just live across the ditch and I've travelled plenty around the world. So yeah, went to Auckland for New Year's and absolute amazing city. Got to explore some of the suburbs of Auckland and some really nice places, like very underrated New Zealand. And yeah, very scenic. Did the winery tours of Waikiki and down to Rotorua and Lake Taupo, and yeah, just magical. Loved every second of it. Great wines, must say. So definitely had a few of those. But yeah, brought in with the new year, and my client that I had, he got to settle the first few days into the new year. So that was exciting for everyone.
Good stuff. Yeah, we had a bit of a weird one. We went to Noosa for 10 days. Then we were back for about a week and a half. And then sort of the Christmas New Year period sort of kicked in. And we went up to Rainbow Beach with some friends for a couple of days over Christmas. So that was pretty good. And, drove on the sand on the 4x4 and tried to do a bit of fishing. I say try because I think the ocean hasn't got any fish left in it every time I go out there. But, that was good. And the rest of the time we were just at home, and our air conditioning broke on the 23rd of December, and it's a ducted system and the whole house went down. So we were baking through Christmas because no one could get back out and no one could fix it. And we went for a month without air conditioning. And if you live in Southeast Queensland in December without air conditioning, you know about it. So the pool got some use, but yeah, back into it and looking forward to a big year ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I know everyone's running off straight away. It's been a busy start to the year so far. I've been buying all over the country. So just one in Cairns recently, also in Albury-Wodonga, and yeah, actually heading over to Darwin tomorrow. So that should be fun. Looking for a client over there as well. The Darwin market is in an exciting place. Is it a long-term thing? Is it short-term? I think that's something we're definitely going to discuss today. And I do like Darwin. I think it's a great city as well. It's got so much to offer. It's got that whole influence from Asia, great food, great markets. It's a tropical climate, so you've also got your weather concerns up there too. But, there's lots of infrastructure going in there, lots of military presence, which is really bringing in driving factors, and the market's going crazy. I was talking to a conveyancer there the other week, and she said, we were all sitting around 2 years ago saying, what are we doing? But it's definitely growing. The rental yields are going through the roof there too, which is very exciting. The house prices and the yields will need to catch up and balance out against each other. And that's definitely wait and see how that pans out.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin is an interesting market. Although it is the capital city of the Northern Territory, it very much reacts like a regional market when you look at historical price growth, where, it has recovered from a couple of years of being very depressed, and now we're off to the races. But you're right, there's a lot of infrastructure investment coming into Darwin. There's a lot of job creation going into Darwin, and the yields do attract investors. So it is certainly a market we'll keep our eye on. But, the other thing obviously is Darwin is a different state. You and I both live in Queensland and we both buy around the country. And just like a lot of the other states, Darwin is very interesting in the way things happen around how you buy properties, the legalities around that. It's very different state by state. And Darwin is its own little snowflake, as they all are. And I think that the topic of conversation today is going to be about when you think about interstate investing, what you need to be prepared for when buying in different states and really how you need to go about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And touching base on that. So, like, yeah, each state's like Queensland, we have our seller's disclosure, our Form 2, and Victoria has Section 32s. When it comes to Darwin, the way that they do their negotiating and with conveyances and stuff like that is a bit different as well. And same with New South Wales, Tasmania, and Perth. You've explained to me before about the different ways that things happen in Perth. So it's really good to do your due diligence. Make sure before you do purchase or looking at purchasing, making sure that you totally understand the best way to go about it. Because I know in Queensland with pets, like it's pretty much a no-brainer. You can't say no. In Darwin, I thought they'd be pet friendly, but not so much. So they want to know what dog you have, what breed you have, how much it weighs to make sure that you're actually going to fit in with that complex unit. Complex I'm talking about here, but it's a bit more stringent when it comes to those side of things. Not every place in Darwin, or Northern Territory, but yeah, a lot that I've been inquiring about recently have been like that.
Yeah. So, you talked about WA. WA is the Wild West, right? when we look at all the states and territories across Australia, I think the way you need to approach it is definitely buyer beware. Now, typically, most states are buyer beware, but the protections they've got in place in WA are very different. And we came across that was about 2 years ago. I was working with a client. We got them into the Perth market, and when we move into a new market, the first thing I do is I have a conversation with a local solicitor to really get a good understanding of how the market works, how the legalities work, what's involved in the process from a contractual perspective, how are you protected, how are you not protected. And the one thing I found extremely interesting in NWA is obviously there's very minimal seller's disclosure. They don't go into as much depth as you do with Victoria or Queensland, which are some of the more friendly states when it comes to seller's disclosure. So there's very limited or no seller's disclosure in WA. There's also no cooling off period in WA unless you write that in as a special condition in the contract, but it's not in there as standard. The other thing I found extremely interesting is when it comes to building pest inspection, you'd think a building pest inspection, just covers you for any issues on the property. And what we actually found was they've got this concept of you being covered under the main roof line of the house. So if you look at the house on satellite view, let's say it's a tiled house, you look at the main roof line, any issues picked up under the main roof line, that's where you can go back with, you can pull out of a contract, you can renegotiate. But any extensions or freestanding buildings aren't automatically covered in WA. So if there's a pergola, even if it's attached to your main house, if there's a pergola that comes out of it or deck that comes out of it or a separate granny flat, if you don't add a special condition into the contract, just stipulate that those items are covered as well, you can be in a bit of trouble. If you find termites on the deck, you can't necessarily walk away from that contract because it doesn't fall under the main roof line. And you look at that and go, wow, okay, that's very stringent and very weighted towards the seller. So you as the buyer, you really need to understand what those nuances are when you get into markets like that. And look, every state is different. And I think a lot of people out there think that everything works like it does in their own backyard. And I think you can really get into trouble if you don't prepare yourself properly for interstate purchases.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting back into Darwin, there are so many other inspections that they like to do. So generally when you're putting your offer in, it's all inspections. And then the conveyance will go and organise all those. And then they'll also organise the building and pest or all those inspectors to come out. So they have relationships with their own people that they like to use. And obviously we're the paying client. So they have the best interest for us as the buyer or the purchaser to do that. So it's easier for the buyer, I guess you could say, in that aspect of everything. And to me, I feel like out of anything Darwin's got going for, that's quite advanced and makes it user-friendly.
Absolutely, because I think there's about 7 or 8 different reports that are included, and these are typically reports people wouldn't automatically do. So they've got two types of building reports. They've got their pest inspection, drainage inspections, electrical inspections, roof inspections, which aren't automatically included in building and pest inspections. There's probably a couple more I'm missing right now, but yeah, that is very advantageous towards the buyer. And ultimately, it's about, in any transaction, it's about balance and fairness, because when you look at a property, unless there's something obviously wrong as the buyer, you rely on those reports. So unless there's something, obvious that you can see the walls falling over, those reports need to provide protection. And I think it's done in a good way, where you are willing to pay a certain price for a property based on what you can see. If the reports then come back and say, well, there's stuff you couldn't see that we've picked up, well, you might have paid a different price. So there needs to be a conversation about that. So yeah, look, I like that. When I first spoke to a solicitor up there, she said, look, it's the Wild West. And when we were done talking, I went, actually, this is pretty good. I quite like that, because that's your only guarantee you've got when you buy a property. Is, we say building a pest, up there they call it reports, is those inspections, those reports, right? Because unless you buy something off the plan or something very, very new, there's no warranty. That is your one check on a property that you can do. So I think they're doing it really well, and I wouldn't mind other states adopting it, where for us, if you want to do plumbing inspection, electrical inspection, roof inspection, stuff like that, those are all separate special conditions in most other states, where it's part of their standard contract. So I agree with you. It's very buyer friendly.
Yeah, reduce your costs over a period of time, because if you're individually going out like you would in Queensland, you say, okay, well, I'm building a pest, and you want to go and get a plumber and then plumber report, you then want to get an electrical report, that's going to add up. If you've got a whole package all in one, well, happy days. That you got people that you use and trust. I know up in Cairns, I'm very limited who I will use, and I have been lucky enough pretty much to find my guy that I like and trust, and have built a great rapport with him to know that I know that my clients are going to get a good job done, and it's going to be thorough. His reports take a little bit longer, but that's due to the fact because he's so thorough, and that's great. I've used other building and pests in other areas, and it's just been a horror show. So having to try and find the right building and pest in certain areas where you're buying is the key to one, negotiating, but making sure that you've got that stable property in the right area, in the right location, to know that you're going to have a good investment for a good period of time, for however long you want it. And you know what? Things do go wrong. Wear and tear, like it's natural, but you just make sure you've got that good investment at the start, make sure you've got a thorough building and pest person, and then it's a lot easier. Then you go on to moving on to the right property manager to make your transaction a lot easier again, to make sure that you've got a great investment.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? I mean, you've got your guy in Cairns, I've got my guy in Brisbane, and I'm even at the point where I would first, before we even make an offer on a property, I'd call them and go, what are your lead times? Because this is someone I know and trust. Yes, they're going to cost you $200 more for a building pest inspection report, but that's a small fee to pay to make sure that you've got someone good in there. It's someone that's trusted, someone that does an excellent job. Like the guy I use is so fastidious, like a little screw on the door handle that's a little bit loose, he will mark that down as a minor defect, right? That's the type of guy that misses nothing. So sometimes you do need to read his report and go, okay, there's 3 loose screws. It takes nothing, right? That's going to take you 30 seconds to fix all of them. But you'd rather have that level of detail than have someone that misses steps or skips steps, because they get paid a certain amount of money to get the building pest inspection done, and some guys do rush it. They really do. I've attended one where a guy went through it so quick, and I went, I just can't trust the speed at which he's done it. I was like, we barely walked into the front door. So finding someone good, especially if you're an interstate buyer, if you can't see the property. But again, right, you're not a trained building pest inspector. It's ultimately down to those guys to use all the tools at their disposal to ensure that they do a proper job. And look, I think with interstate purchases, right, a lot of people are buying, I would say, sight unseen, right? They haven't physically seen the property. So you really have to build your local team, and you really have to trust that team. And the other thing is having someone trusted run their eyes across the property before you even make that offer. Last thing you want to do is engage a building pest inspector, pay them, and then the issues that would have been very obvious had someone just looked at that property. Because again, it takes away some of your time, takes away some of your focus. It does cost money to go through that. You're tied up into that contract. It takes a while to sort of step out of that. So I think with interstate purchases, it's extremely important to understand the nuance of every state, to have your local team set up ready to go, and to ensure that all the legalities are ticked off properly, because you don't want to end up with a property that's just a hole you have to pile money into, because that just kills your investment.
That's right. And I know with Tasmania, I think I mentioned this before, that they do things a bit different. So there is going to be issues. What's your leeway okay, we'll set a price of say $5,000 to $8,000. Anything that comes back in the building and pest report after that is what you can sort of claim on the report, whether they fix it or not. So it's another way that another state does things differently. So yeah, it's good to have if you're buying Australia-wide, good to have your head around how that works to make sure that you are buying that right investment in the long run, for the long term.
Absolutely. So I think the key takeaway is have your team, make sure it's a team you can trust, because you'll be spending a lot of money on it, and understand the nuance. And solicitors, they are typically state by state or state and territory based. Very few of them work across state lines. So you have to build your team and make sure you've got someone that can support you.
And this is becoming a bit of a common message that we do say this each week, because we focus on how important it is to have that right team. And I agree with you there. When it comes to conveyances, there are some that do Australia-wide, and that's great. Like, it opens up more regions that they can work with. But for me personally, I would only have a person that focuses on that state, because every state's got their own different things that they have, and to be across it all, like, it's a pretty big job, let alone just to be across one state, but to be over every state and territory. I personally would only ever recommend someone that does focus on that one state.
Yeah, I agree. And look, even the ones that do cross border might do two states like Queensland, New South Wales, and they'd have specific solicitors for each state. Because legislative changes, there's a lot to keep on top of. They can get very, very busy. And, again, your building pest inspector, your conveyancer is there to really, really look after you. Like, this is not where you try and save a couple of bucks, right? Pay for a good building pest inspector, pay for a good conveyancer or solicitor. These are the guys that they're going to protect your ass if things go wrong, ultimately. So this is not where you skimp. I've seen a lot of people not want to pay an extra $200 for a building pest inspector. You're buying $1 million property. Let's make sure that, termites haven't eaten through half the property and it's going to cost you $100,000 to fix. Same with the solicitor. Sometimes things go wrong and they have to come in bat for you. Hopefully everything is fine and it runs okay as it should. And, I had a situation where we had terms into a contract to protect a client, and then the sellers weren't doing the right thing. And the solicitor then had to sort of step up and take charge and push back really, really hard, because the sellers weren't doing the right thing. And there are solicitors out there that will just want you to accept it because they want to get onto the next deal, because they're not making too much money from you. So ultimately, it's about paying a fair price, and cheap isn't always good. I've seen cheap fail so many times.
I had a great saying once, and it was like, you're comparing Qantas and Jetstar. I'd rather pay a little bit more than go with Qantas, because I know I'm going to get that better service and I know I'm going to get there and on time. Whereas if I go with Jetstar and pay, less, flight's delayed, bags might turn up, I'm not sure. And so, we're going to get all bags in one. So, quality over quantity, and making sure that you get that right.
And look, I agree with it. I remember Tiger Airways back in the day. I flew with them once and it was an absolute nightmare, right? So I think the flight was cancelled. We had to go back the next day. It was just a mess at the end of the day. So I think it holds true. You can pay for quality, or you can pay a subpar price for anything in life, really. And I think what people need to remember is that when you buy an investment property, it's the performance over the next 10 years, which is really going to make the difference. And you might say $5,000 up front, but with leverage, it might end up costing you $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 over a 10-year period. So again, where do you want to save your money? Is it about saving a couple of grand, or is it about unlocking significant growth over the next decade? So, and that's a bit of a mindset change, right? When you look at your bank account, you go, oh, an extra $5,000 in the bank might sound good right now, but how does an extra $300,000 over 10 years sound? Look, markets will differ, but ultimately it's about getting someone into the best property in the best location for their circumstances. And I think what both of us do is so much more than just buy a property, right? We really focused on investors. I know from mine, I probably spent 70% of the time on research, goal setting, market selection. The last 30% is actually the buying side. And that's where you get a lot of strategic advice, a lot of planning, forecasting, research.
That's right. And it's like, the more work you put in, the better the rewards you get too. And I'm very much the same. I remember when I first started looking into becoming a buyer's agent, because I was trying to get out of my nursing career and I wanted to do something that I also had a passion for. And I called up a guy, I think he was based in Townsville, and I said, oh, look, I'm thinking of becoming a buyer's agent and all that sort of stuff. And he's like, well, yeah, it's a pretty big job, but you also get freedom of your time and all that. And he goes, oh, like the research in the property is only about 5%. I'm like, what? We're buying houses here. And yeah, now I'm backtracking and I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, you're constantly researching, you're constantly doing the due diligence, you're constantly working with your clients to what they want to get, what's their end goal. I always ask that question. You might have 4 or 5 properties, but what is your end goal? What do you want to get and how do we get to that? So once we know your goal, we'll go back to the start, work out how we get to that. And we both have tools and people around us that can help us get our clients, which is you people listening, to get to those goals. So that's the fun part for me. Like, I do love going to open homes. It's exciting, get to meet new people and build relationships and get to see some fantastic homes and some not so fantastic homes. But, it's the research that we do. It's the making sure that we've got the right area, making sure that we're in your budget, and we're not making sure that you're eating toasted sandwiches for the rest of your life because you've bought this overpriced investment property. So we want to work with you to make sure that you're getting value for your money and a great cash flow or investment property at the end that works for you.
Not that we're bagging toasted sandwiches. If that's what you love to eat, by all means go for it. A good toasted ham, cheese, and tomato hits the spot sometimes, but maybe not for every meal, right? Bread and water, not just bread and water for every meal.
So, I guess when we could talk about the bold statement of the week, my biggest bold statement I think for this week is don't listen to the white noise.
My bold statement of the week is we touched on interstate investing. Make sure you've got your team together. And it's probably not that bold, but don't be afraid to pay for quality service. This is not where you save money. You are investing to make money, and sometimes you have to spend a little bit more to get quality service on your side. All right. I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah, it was good.
Enjoy the trip to Darwin.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I've got to go pack.
Don't go swimming in the ocean.
Well, I'm used to that here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bold Property Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who wants to make smarter moves in the property market. For more insights and support, connect with Carl at the Barnard Group or Cameron at The Way to Invest. Join us next week as we continue to break down the market and help you invest with clarity and confidence.